Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, depending on where you are. Thank you for joining us today. I'm Dan. I am here to moderate these very, very intelligent people to talk to you about how and when to scale your Amazon growth. Just a few bit of housekeeping points before we start. We're brought today by SellZone. Just as an introductory offer, because you signed up to this webinar, you are now entitled to a free 90-day trial with the tool as well. We'll be talking about the tool as we go on through this as well, but it's one of the tools that I live by when it comes to Amazon, and the fact that you've now got it for 90 days free trial should hopefully be quite interesting for you as well. Give us a shout out. Please put any questions you've got. There are no stupid questions when it comes to Amazon because the game is being changed all the time. Please fire your questions, and if you can tell us where you are as well, we'd love to know where the audience is. We will give you a shout out as we go along. Just while we're still waiting for a few people to come along, I'd like to introduce you to our hosts. Sorry, not our hosts, our panel today. I will start off with Robyn, because we all know and love Robyn. And then Robyn, you know Cindy quite well, and we've got to know Charles as well. So hopefully we can lead on like that.
That sounds great. I'm really excited to be here. Scaling is like one of my favorite topics. So right now I'm the CEO of Marketplace Blueprint, which is an agency that specializes in Amazon. But over 10 years ago when I started as an Amazon seller. I started with $100. I built my business up into $1 million in just a few short years. And that was when we had no money to borrow money. We had no credit, we had no nothing. And so scaling is very possible on Amazon, but there are some things that can really take the rug out from underneath you. So I'm really excited to share about those things and kind of share what we've learned, not only as our experience as sellers, but also as we now help brands of, from small to publicly traded grow their presence on Amazon.
That's fantastic. And yeah, the wealth of experience that we've got on this panel today is absolutely fantastic. Cindy, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'm Cindy Thomason, and I'm the founder of Bookskeep. We're an accounting firm that specializes in e-commerce sellers, Amazon sellers. And we not only help with the bookkeeping, but we also help with people manage their profitability. And ultimately, that leads to a positive experience growing and to exiting. So we love the opportunity to help not only give you good numbers and understand them, but also position yourself to grow and end up making this a scalable business that works for you instead of the other way around.
That's fantastic. Yeah, where are you in 2012 when I needed something like this? It's amazing. It's just amazing that the business has grown. So we've got some really brilliant individuals like yourself have come forward to really take the next step as well. Last but by no means least, Charles, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, for sure. Hi, I'm very happy to be here. I'm Charles. I'm working for SellerX. It's a Fba aggregator. I'm the chief commercial officer there, making sure that the brand we acquire, that we develop them and make them big. So super excited to scale them. Before joining SellerX, I spent almost 8 years at Amazon. So from the other side, and the last 6 years, I work on the marketplaces, developing several programs that some of the marketplace sellers are using on the daily life. So such as the Small and Light program or the Pan-European FBA program. And many times I heard the same story from a lot of sellers is I'm not sure how to grow. I would like to grow, but I don't have the skills or the knowledge. And I'm happy to share a bit of my experience today.
Perfect. And yeah, I've had a sneak peek at the presentations that we've got today. Everyone here is in for a treat. As I said, please feel free to fire any comments or questions that you've got into the comment section. We will go through them as best we can. If we run out of time, please feel free to reach out to the SellZone people. And then for any specific questions, they'll fire you to the right person here today, because we've got such a wide variety of knowledge. I don't think there's anything we can't handle between us all here today. Touch wood, not that I'm going to be the one that jinxes it. So, Charles, I think we've given everyone enough time to sign in. 5 minutes late. We used to have it. The rule at the university is that if the lecturer didn't turn up at 5 minutes late, you just kind of left after that. So, Charles, if you'd like to kick us off, and we can go into this.
Sure. Should I share my screen?
If you could, that'd be fantastic. Thank you.
Yeah. So let me try. There you go. So I'm presenting. Do you see it?
How to scale? Yeah, we've got this here. Yeah.
So I've prepared a few slides to discuss on how to scale your Amazon business. So the way we do it, and if I may share some tips, is we focus around 4 main levers that I will present today. So one is operational efficiency. The second one is regional expansion. The third one is portfolio expansion, and the last one is channel expansion. Let's start first with operational efficiency. So when we have a brand, so we focus on a few sub-levels within the operational efficiency to make sure that we can grow. So the first one, which is quite obvious, is stock. I'm completely obsessed of not being out of stock, because if you're out of stock, it's obvious, you just cannot sell. And it has been a rough journey across the last 4 months with this new restock limit policy of Amazon. And so if one tip, what we do, for instance, is that we increase a bit our coverage in third-party logistic close to Amazon fulfillment center, in order that every time we can inbound new quantity, then we can quickly do that. The second thing that is super important is that you need to improve your IPI. So in order to make sure that you can inbound and you have enough storage place into the Amazon FCs. If you have the IPI score at Amazon has 4 components, and if you have to focus, please focus only on 2, which is focus on the sales through rate and focus on the FBA out of stock or the FBA in stock rate, because it will help you the most to increase your IPI score, and therefore you will be able to place more product into the Amazon fulfillment center. And as well, it will improve your profitability of your product and of your P&L, because you will sell more because your products are in stock, and you will have less aged inventory in the FBA fulfillment centers. In order to know how much quantity you need to send, you can follow the Amazon restock, the Amazon recommendation that you can find in Seller Central, or you can as well develop, and I think I recommend you to do that for each of your product, develop your own demand planning. So do your own forecast, because Amazon is good, but not yet perfect on forecasting the exact quantity of asin you will sell in the future. Then the second thing is content. It's super important to have a perfect item data quality score. So I'm sure some of you are using Helium 10 or DataHawk, and here you can see easily on each of the detail page when you go on Amazon your score. So what I recommend is making sure that you have at least 5 pictures. Follow the Amazon style guide, with the white background, in order not that your asin gets suppressed. Making sure as well that you have at least 1 lifestyle pictures to engage your customer. Put a video. This is key. It will increase your conversion rates, and as well create the A+ content, because you have some statistic that prove that if you have some A+ content, you increase your conversion rate, and it's a great opportunity to explain very easily then the benefit of your product. Sometimes we tend to forget that when you create the A+ content, or you're on Seller Central uploading everything, you forget that 50% of the customers shop on a cell phone and not on the laptop. So remember that when you check the quality of your detail page, check it on a laptop and on a cell phone, because sometimes it's not exactly the same rendering, and we have many customers that shop on the cell phone. Then on SEO, so making sure that your keywords, always think about new keywords in order to continue to rank high in the search algorithm, and PPC as well. You need to adapt your PPC campaign to your market strategy. Is it an old asin? Is it a new asin? Are you entering a market? Do you have some competitors that are coming in, and therefore you need to go for a different strategy? Or do you want to gain market share, and therefore you go to an offense strategy and put your advertising on a competitor page? Then price. Price is a big topic and a complex one, because there is no perfect solution on pricing. I think you need to test your price depending and adapt your price with the number of review you have. So the higher the number of review you have, the easier it is to increase a bit the price versus competitor. But you have to test it because some products are really commodity products, and therefore then they are very sensitive to price. Other are less, and then a high review mode will give you an opportunity to be a bit more expensive than your competitors. But it's really product specific and niche specific. And of course, set up some alarm system to make sure that you are reactive. If a competitor gets out of stock, then you have an opportunity to increase a bit your price in order to increase your margin. Then the second thing that we do is deals coupon. And this is key to grow your business. You have different types of deals on Amazon and different coupon strategy. And the way we do it is we have different strategy if the product is new or if the product is already established on the market. So when we launch a product, we don't really use deals. We prefer to use coupon and sponsor product, because deals are expensive at Amazon. It's between 35 euros or $50, depending on the marketplaces. And so it is not always worth it. But if you have an established product that qualifies for deals, and that you have been selling for this product for more than 6 months, then you can do a deal, a lighting deals or 7-day deals. On that, be careful on your profitability. One, so make the calculation if it makes sense financially to do this deal. And two, make sure that you have enough stock, because when you are going to do a deal, you are going to sell more the day of the deals and a few days after the deals. So that's why you need to plan it very carefully and accordingly. Q4 is coming. There will be a lot of deals activity. And you need to plan it for the full Q4 and making sure that you have enough stock. Otherwise, there is no point to do a deal if you cannot serve the customer afterwards. Then the next topic is a weekly and daily check. So making sure that you have an alarm system when you sell on Amazon. To check what's going on. You can go quickly on Seller Central every day or set up some automatic email to monitor your account health, making sure that you are not at risk of being suspended, or making sure that you are not at risk that some listing has been changed by your competitors, or they have been suppressed, or there have been an issue. Amazon is changing their policy very regularly, and that's why it's important to check. And what I like to do is to get automatically emails on every new customer reviews, in order that I see what my customers are telling me when they use the product. The last tip I would give in terms of operational efficiency is that you need for your brand to try some Amazon programs. Depending of which product you are selling and on which geography you are selling. So for instance, the SNL, so the small and light program. So if you are selling small products that are light, so everything that fits into an envelope and that is below £9 in UK, 10 euros in Europe, and I think $7 in the US, then you can register your products, and like that you will pay less FBA fees. The delivery time will be a bit slower than a normal FBA shipment, but it's a good opportunity to reduce your price and to gain a competitive advantage to other competitors, or just to increase your profitability. So look if it's a good deal for you. Then if you expand to Europe, or if you're a European seller, of course, you need to test the pan-European FBA program that will allow you to quickly expand across all European marketplace. Then, you can easily, in 2 clicks, in Seller Central, you can say that you start to sell to B2B customers, and you will very easily gain new customers and maybe increase your sales by 2 to 5%. And finally, as well, very easy to set up, and you need to check if it has no tax implication for you as a seller, is the Fba Export Program. So it allows customers across the world, for example, to go on Amazon.com and then get the product delivered, even if they are not sitting in the United States. So it's a small setup. It's Amazon Seller Central, and it gives you a lot of customers that you usually don't have access to. Then what is important as well is that sometimes we need to not to forget that selling on Amazon is not only about the Amazon experience, but it's the full customer experience, So in order to develop your brand, you need to start with the customer and work backward. And you need to think on all the customer touch points that the customer will have when he use your product. So first is the reach. Where is your product visible? Do you have your own website, some other marketplaces? Do you sell B2B? Then the second is the trust. So for each of your products or your brands, make sure that you have a clear price and value proposition. Then third is content. As I was discussing before, it's e-commerce. So the only way to convince the customers is not to talk to them, but that when they go online, that they see a perfect content and that they want to buy the product. But after that, the customer take it, have it at home, and it's important to have a great unboxing experience that is fitting your price value proposition. So if you sell a high price product, think about the box, think about, when the customer get the product, that he will be delighted to open his box and have a great experience that fits the price value proposition. Then, of course, there is the usage. So making sure that, you get the best customer reviews, because in the detail page, you describe it clearly, and that the customer, when they get the product, they are really happy with what they bought. And finally, it's all the engagement and the customer service. So after the usage, how can a customer contact you? Then so that was the basic on operational efficiency. Then if you want to ramp up, you have three other possibilities. The first one is the regional expansion. So for example, at SellerX, what we do is that when we acquire a US brand, then we bring it to Europe. When we acquire a European brand, then we expand it within Europe and then to the US. So, with programs like Pan-EU, Fba Export, or global selling. So, and that's great at Amazon. It's kind of easy to do within Amazon, but it's more difficult to do outside of Amazon with all the regulation and all the implication it has to sell cross-country. The second pillar to grow is channel expansion. So, Amazon is big, but other marketplaces are getting big as well and getting some market share, such as Walmart, eBay, Bol.com, Allegro, Mano, and many others that I'm not quoting here. And as well, Shopify, so to have your own website. And here you have to decide for your brands and your products, where do you want to sell? In which niche market, in which geography? Check those marketplaces and see if it could be a good fit. And finally, of course, is you need to launch new products in order to grow. What we like to do is launch new product, but also new variation. And why do we like variation? It's because you can benefit from the review modes of your old product. So, for example, you are selling a green dog leash, then you just have to launch a red one, a black one, in order to create a new engagement from the customers and create benefits to the customers. Maybe my last slides to give you some example of what we did with the brands that we acquired. So, for instance, our first acquisition was a European art supply brand. The first thing we did with this brand, it was a German brand, and we say, okay, let's go to Europe and increase within Europe. So we managed to increase the sales outside of Germany from 10 to 23%. The second thing we did was really to focus on the in-stock rate and making sure that we are not getting out of stock, and that really improved. So from 68% to 95%. We work on listing optimization and marketing efficiency, so making sure that our PPC campaigns, our SEO and content is good, and then our conversion rate increased by 5 percentage points. And we launched new product. And the next step, for instance, for this brand, because it takes more time, is we want to expand to other channels such as B2B or other marketplaces and go to the US in Q4 2021. And another example that we have is a US baby brand. What we are working on right now is the EU certification process to launch the brand from US to the EU, which is a bit complex. We improved the in-stock rate. We are not anymore out of stock for this brand. And we increase as well very well the listing for PPC campaign and SEO, and increase our conversion rate by 35%. And the next step for this brand is a bit of a new branding and go to other marketplaces. That's it for today for my side, for my presentation. And if you want more information, please visit our website. And there is a lot of information there. That's
Sorry, I
it.
was struggling to unmute myself there. Thank
and
you
I
so
will
much.
Stop sharing my screen. My pleasure.
Perfect. Thank you very much. That's really, really insightful. And I know we've got quite a few questions to go through, but I'm going to go through some of the ones that I've had sort of come up, because we've all been on this side of what with COVID, and then we had the Suez blocking as well. In terms of the stock, and you mentioned obviously how important stock is and how much of a ranking factor it is and how much it affects FBA. How have you sort of overcome the issues with stock that we've had with all the different blockages within logistics at the moment?
It was a very challenging time. It's getting better now, but it was a very challenging time. So we are a bit obsessed on that. So really, I think daily we monitor where our stock is, where the ships are, if because the velocity changed. So we are really following that closely. The solution that we have is right now to make sure that we increase a bit our coverage in third-party logistic, to have a buffer stock. And at Amazon, we really focus on putting there the top sellers and slowly, decreasing the long tail. Like that, the restock limit increase and our IPI increase.
Interesting. Yeah, it's been a very interesting one because everyone's had supplier issues or distribution issues. It's good to see that there are ways around it. And like you said, the light at the end of the tunnel where it is starting to pick back up. Those that don't know, in the UK, we're having a shortage of actually heavy goods vehicle drivers at the moment. So that's sort of added and compounded onto it as well. But Brexit, that's another topic for another day. One of the things that you mentioned actually that was quite interesting is taking brands from the US into the EU. One of the questions I've got is if you've acquired this brand, have you ever had to launch a product into a market where you don't speak the language?
So I think we are lucky enough at SellerX because we are from Europe. We come originally from Berlin, but we have offices in London and in the US. So we speak most of the, I would say, European languages. So that's not an issue. We might consider, in the future to go to Asia, and then it will be a challenge. But here what we believe is that you need some local speaker in order to really have the correct languages. So automatic translation is not enough. You have to have someone that is speaking the language that will create your detail page and answer your customers as well.
Oh, very interesting. I've literally, for those that are regular viewers, you can see that this is not my office space. I'm currently in Brighton with everyone for Brighton SEO, and I've come from a really good talk from one of the team at Rise at 7, if anyone's heard of them before, where they were talking about doing keyword research in a language that you don't speak. And because we cover multiple areas and multiple zones, there's very few actual Amazon experts that speak all these different languages. But they raised a very good point, the same one that you've raised there, Charles, that you've got to have that native language speaker, because it's all well and good going through the automated tool set or the automatic translations, etc., but unless it makes sense, are you targeting a keyword that has a strong impact in the UK, but all of a sudden, actually, if you translate it into German, it has zero effect or zero impact.
Exactly. Well. And some keywords of bullet point of your listing might be different depending of the market. So German customer, UK customer, French customer, US customers don't always perceive the same importance of some product specific per marketplaces, and that's why it's so important to speak the local language and to understand it.
You mentioned it in terms of I apologize, everybody. I'm diving in here with all my different questions. Robyn Cindy, if you've got any questions, feel free to interrupt me. I know we've obviously got a few coming through on the comment section at the moment, but these are more the ones that from personal interest more than anything else. In terms of what you mentioned in terms of global reach and different platforms, you mentioned building on Shopify, building on Google, building on the websites that Google picks up as well. Have you done much work with the Amazon rewards scheme, where if you advertise on a platform away from Google, that you've then Amazon, that you've then had the reward back from there?
So we have tested it. So we have, I think they released it like only a few weeks ago. And you cannot yet see the exact result and how much it will impact your P&L, I believe. And so we have only started to test it, and I'm eager to see the results. But of course, I think it's key to have a presence outside of Amazon and to bring traffic into Amazon.
It is quite interesting because obviously I head up an e-commerce department. And when we deal with audits, it's a case of we've got the Amazon factor, but then we've also got the Google factor. What we see is that because Amazon is Amazon, it ranks quite high in the e-commerce sphere, but it's also the balance of, well, actually, if it's ranking anyway, how do we benefit from that as well? Some really, really interesting points, and I think there's a lot for people to really build up from that. In terms of the presentation you've just pulled through, is there any sort of 3 takeaways straight away that you would say someone that's brand new into the business? Are there sort of 3 points that you'd say, if you're minimalized on time, you don't really know what you're doing, what's the sort of 3 things that you would then say, actually, start this now?
Make sure you do not get out of stock. Make sure you have a good detail page, and make sure that you have the right price that will allow you to compete, but be profitable in order to survive on the long term.
And for those that aren't aware, that you can actually do A/B testing with price when it comes to Amazon. You can obviously use the Sell Zone tool, which again, massively biased, but I don't get paid, is a free tool. But you change in terms of content, in terms of the titles, pictures, and prices as well. It then gives us the ability to actually, if, as you mentioned before, Charles, if we're not a commodity, it gives us that power to sort of build up around there and then say, actually, we can add a little bit more onto this because we're not a commodity. But then it also gives you an idea when you're just searching for stock to say, oh, actually, if I go into this market, it's a commodity and it's just going to be in a race for price. Robyn, have you had to launch products in that sort of sphere?
Yeah. So, I mean, it does depend, and it does, like you said, pricing is really important. And I think one thing to think about too is when Charles is working on clients, most of those have already been established as the product is in demand. So, so we have to think about where you are in the phase. And in the first phase of if you're just starting your own private label and you're launching that, then you need to kind of add on some extra layers of consideration. Is this product in demand? Is it oversaturated? Do I have the budget to be able to kind of buy my way those initial conversions? So I think the way that you launch products is different depending on what stage. And that's definitely something we've seen in the agency, is not only just the region you're in, it's not only just the product, but it's also where your business is in kind of that growth curve.
Yeah, that's a very good point in terms of dealing with the stock that's already listed and live as well. It's a very good point when you've got those sort of historic benefits there from you as well. Even if you've done poorly, you've still got history that you can then build up on there at least.
Yeah, and it's the same when you enter a new market, a new geography. It will not be the same price strategy, the same PPC strategy, the same deal strategy as when your product is really established with tons of reviews.
And not every platform is evolved to the same place. Not every platform has the same advertising programs and special programs. And so, I think sometimes people forget that. They think like, if I'm doing really well on Amazon.com, I can just triple my sales by going to Canada and the EU. And it's not always that. You have to think about what is the market size. So if you're selling football, like American footballs, they're probably not going to do great in the UK. Like you might sell some, but you're not going to make $1 million, coming in with a new American football, because, so you have to think about, what is the intent of the users that are on that platform? What is the market size too?
Well, and the other piece of it is how much bandwidth and attention you have to spread to adding. If you're new to this and just getting started, you can only do so much. And sometimes the distraction of having going into smaller markets is just not worth the distraction, where your attention would be better placed on maximizing where you're at before you start dabbling in other places too.
Definitely. I think that actually brings us quite nicely onto our second presentation of the evening. It was almost like we planned it in that layer. If you would like to share a screen, very interested for our viewers to see this presentation. Again, I get to see these a little bit before everybody else, so I'm always trying to implement everything that I see as soon as I see it. So hopefully we'll all see it get as much benefit out of it as I have as well.
Well, one of the things that we were talking about before we went live was how great this topic is, because it can range a variety of different sellers. So if you're brand new, I would just like to reiterate that the most important thing is that you have high quality inventory that's in demand, that's profitable. And before anything else, you need to make sure that you become a master at sourcing. So if you're in that beginner stage, you need to be like Olympic level, like Michael Jordan. There is no like community basketball team level. I mean, it is, I'm always looking at trying to get the next little, a little bit more. How can I dump a couple of these lower performing products and replace them with higher performing products? That needs to be the first skill set that you master, so that you can get to the point where you can sell and work with somebody like Charles, so that is really important. And so no matter where you are, I think that especially if a lot of my presentation is going to be talking about like getting ready to sell. And so we're going to do like a slide, and then what will happen is after the slide, we'll talk a little bit about each slide, and then we'll kind of go back to it. And just remember that cash flow is really important. But so you want to begin with the end in mind. So if you say, I'm going to focus on building a business that would be profitably able to be sold, then that's going to allow you, even if you decide not to sell, to be able to pay your mortgage, to be able to put money in savings, to put money in retirement, and I don't know, even take a vacation. So we want to start working on making not an own job, but like really, if you're in that younger stage in your business, really, how can I make my business a legitimate business where I can walk away and my business can continue without me, especially in this era of COVID. If you were to get out sick, would your business be able to survive you being gone? And then I had a client that talked to me a little bit about that. We were talking about some changes, and he's like, do you ever feel like you live in the Hunger Games? And I was like, yes, 100%. Selling on Amazon means that there's always these big changes, and it's like the way that you thought you were going to win, all of a sudden that's taken away and you have to start something new. So that means that to be successful and to continue to scale on Amazon, you cannot get complacent. You have to keep focused on what's happening in the future. Where do you see the trends in the marketplace? When is it time to move resources and reallocate things? So as we're getting ready to get in your mind, I want you to get to the point where you're saying, okay, I want to prepare my business to sell. So unless you already sold your business, it should apply to everybody before, because even if you're just starting, we're going to start with the right foundations. And the first thing is, especially, if you have, a good amount of sales, you've established yourself as a business, you're sure this is not just a passing fantasy. You want to meet with a CPA and tax attorney to make sure your bank structure, your accounts, any tax obligations. So if you want to sell your business and you haven't handled those things, you're going to have a really hard time. You really need to make sure that that is clear. And it's also very important that you pull out, that you make sure that you have a really a clear and accurate profit and loss and balance sheet. That means, like, if you're using like Inventory Lab or GoDaddy, that's not going to be enough. You really need a balance sheet and a profit and loss. And Cindy, I think, is going to talk a little. Hopefully, she can kind of expand on this, because when we work with her bookkeeping firm on a couple of mutual clients, and one of the really powerful things that she does is she creates these books, and she uses software like A2X to help make sure that the books are actually actionable and not just for taxes. So you want to make sure that your books are, so you can look at the last month and you can say, I spent too much here, or I need to decrease this, or I need to increase that, and make actionable changes.
And Robyn, if I could add on to that a little bit, one of the things that you want to make sure your financials are giving you, you want your P&L and your balance sheet to be presented in an accrual method. Mm-hmm. You want to be able to see the relationship to the sales that you made and the cost that you had for selling that product. And accrual accounting does that. And when you get ready to sell, that's one of the first things a broker, a potential buyer is going to look at. They're going to want to know, are your books presented in a way that we can truly understand your profitability month by month? And so you want a P&L, you want a balance sheet, but you want to be accounting in either an accrual method or a modified cash method, where at least your revenue and your cost of goods sold are presented so that you can see the profitability at your gross margin level.
And that cost of goods sold is really important, because you're not going to be able to understand when things are going wrong and going horribly wrong if you're not really watching and have accurate reflections of that cost of good. And so that accrual method gives you a lot more leverage to really look at that profit and loss and make changes. And then when you're looking at trying to, well, am I ready to sell? One of the things that you might not be aware of if you haven't looked into this is there's certain things that are add backs. So if we take something like a, like your salary, or like you went to Brighton SEO and the cost for you to go to Brighton and come back, that is going to be considered an add back. So that's going to kind of change the total evaluation of your company. So you want to know what things count as add backs, what things don't count as add backs, and to try to help you determine when are you ready to sell. And so you want to start investigating on what some of those things are. And what that basically does, it allows you to, it allows you to change separate the tax strategy of your products from the actual how much your business would have netted without kind of the tax strategy that's involved. And speaking about tax, you really need to think about sales tax and make sure that you've handled the sales tax issue, and you've really identified where do you have economic nexus. You don't want those things to be an issue. So you want to make sure you're thinking about that as you're moving forward. So Cindy, do you want to touch base a little bit on sales tax a little bit?
Well, sales tax is ever changing. It's starting to settle out in the U.S., but you don't. Many times when you're in the negotiation with a potential buyer, you want to be sure that you can that you've addressed the sales tax liability, because they're not going to want to take on a failed sales tax strategy where you've not paid the sales tax, and that there may be a liability to come back on the business. So that's why it's important to do an audit, to be sure that you understand what that implications are for sales tax. If you've handled it successfully, great. If not, what do you need to do to make sure that you've covered your bases, that's not going to be a stumbling block for a potential buyer?
Because it is something that you can't wait till the last minute, because sometimes if you wait to, I'm going to wait till I'm ready to sell to deal with this, then by that time it's such a big enough mess that it, not only is it going to affect your valuation because you're not going to be really ready for it, but also that, you might have gotten yourself into a tax situation. Cindy, do you want to talk? So Cindy actually created this great profit and loss add back. And do you mind walking us through this a little bit and kind of like what you use this for with clients that are ready to sell?
Yes, actually, we start working with clients who are trying to position their business for sale in the next year or so. We've created a P&L that helps our clients look at how their business is performing and how it may be appealing to a potential buyer, to also give them some information so that as they're trying to figure out what that number is for them, that they know when they're ready to make a decision. One of the key factors when you get ready to sell is to really know your numbers, to really know the value of your business. So this is a kind of summary document. I think we've got 2 or 3 slides here, but I'll go through each one. But it's presented as an overall document where you understand what your operating profit is, what your add backs are. And as Robyn mentioned, the add backs are things that would be added back because a potential buyer would not necessarily have those expenses. The difference between what you want your bottom line number to be from a tax perspective and what you want your bottom line number to be able to calculate a multiplier are there 2 different things. So we try to present this report for our clients so that they can see, all right, this is my operating profit as I might present it for my taxes, but then these are the things that I'm going to add back in, things like salary, travel. You may have certain office expenses that a potential buyer wouldn't have. When we work with our clients, we recommend to them to be aggressive and create an aggressive list of add backs, because when you're starting to have a conversation with a potential buyer, that's a point of negotiation. And so you may as well put it out there and have a conversation about it and not just assume, oh, well, they're going to have that expense, so I need to put it in. So we always advise, be aggressive with what you put on that list. And then, of course, inventory, how much inventory you have is part of that as well. We like to show in these little line graphs here at the bottom, we like to look at what the operating profit is for a rolling 12 months. We like to look at what the add backs are, during that same 12-month period. And then if those 2 things added together give you what your total operating profit plus the add backs are, and then you can start to apply what you think the multipliers may factor in. So at 4x, 5x, 6x, what is the expected value of your business based on the math of adding back in the add backs, as well as then looking at what the multipliers might be. So when you start to try to understand what the value of your business is, having a report like this can have some can help you be in a position to really understand what the what number is starting to feel important to you for the decision making you have to do.
Yeah. And so when you look at, you can kind of follow, when you look at that graph, it gives you a lot of information. And so if you can have somebody put this together for you, if you're looking to sell or trying to determine, and you can also just look at where you are to make sure that you do have multiple exit opportunities. So you can say, what are some of the things that we need to address? And because anything that makes your business more profitable, even if you don't sell, that's more money in your pocket. And especially with those things being as unpredictable as they have been lately, that additional cash flow gives you more opportunities to be able to pivot as the market changes. So even if you're not selling, having a report like this can be very powerful in helping you make decisions going forward in the future.
That's right. And this is just kind of the same information, but we present it month by month so that you can start to see what kind of trends there may be in your business. There was a time in this example where this client's valuation was much higher than they were later on. And, so if you have this information, you can start to understand how changes in the market, what risk there is for holding on to your business versus selling it maybe when you're on a high. And if you see these trends happening over time, you're in a better position to be able to say, this is the right time. And so that's the point of this, just getting the data in front of our clients so that they're in a position to be able to really to make a decision that's right for them.
Because what gets measured really gets managed. And so by having access to this data, you're able to identify trends before they become a problem. And you can identify the time, if you do decide to sell, when the best opportunity is to maximize that return on investment.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then this is the last page of going through the accounts in the P&L, and I know this is very tiny, but going through the accounts in the P&L and determining which of those accounts that they're important for you from a tax perspective, but a potential buyer would not need those. So this is just a list of example add back accounts that would make up a add back strategy. So might get you thinking some about things that you could include in your add backs when you're starting to have a negotiation.
Remember, these are all the things that if you weren't in charge, that were kind of discretionary purchases by you. So this is something to think about. So if you put like your cell phone, and I'm not talking about whether or not you should put your cell phone on or not, like that's not the discussion we're having now. But let's say you put your cell phone on your profit and loss, and that was kind of a tax strategy. I'm again not saying that's a good thing or a bad thing. I'm just saying, anything that's like that. So you decided to go to a conference that future owner may or may not. That's not a requirement for them to go to that conference. So that affects the profitability and the overall, overarchingly, the multiplier that you would get for that business. So whether or not you're selling, you want to focus on profitability. So one of the things that has made, as sellers and as we moved into the agency even, that has made us be able to have the capital that we need now is to really on a quarterly basis go through and reassess the expenses, especially if you are those tools, the costs just creep up on you. You're like, oh, I'll sign up for this tool. And then next thing you know, like there have been times where we've been able to cut, $1,000, $2,000 worth of expenses a month. That's a lot of money over the course of a year. And at the enterprise level, those tools get even more expensive, so it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars. So, are you really looking at these tools? What is the cost benefit? And am I getting the best value out of my labor dollars? What can I do to optimize that? That's going to be a big component in your ability to do that. And cash is the thing that keeps your business going. So if you are not watching your expenses, you will not have the gasoline that you need in order to get through kind of the uphill portions of selling on Amazon. And so scaling, one of the things I think sometimes people, when you watch people on YouTube, they're always talking about grow and hustle and grow and hustle. They don't talk about how dangerous uncontrolled fast growth can be, because it sucks up all of that cash and then you have no place to turn. And we see a lot of people borrowing money at high interest rates to try to survive, and it just becomes this toilet bowl effect. So it is very, very important that before you scale, you have really focused on operations and profitability.
Yeah, and I'd like to add to that, Robyn. I think Charles makes a really good point. You don't want to run out of stock. But what I see happening with so many clients is they have gone wide in terms of product offering, and not all of them have the same level of profitability. But they're having to put cash out the door to be able to keep the inventory, in stock. And when you look at the cash that goes out the door for keeping that inventory on products that really aren't bringing you the level of profitability that you need to survive, that you're really deploying your cash in the wrong way. Because if something is not performing at the gross margin level in the way that you need it to, and you are running out of stock in your profitable products, you're setting yourself up to put your cash into the wrong buckets. So in addition to looking at your expenses, look at your product profitability. Not everything is at the same performance level. You may have a gross margin of 35-40%, but I guarantee you, if you do a Pareto analysis on that, not all of your products are generating that same level of gross margin. So take the ones that aren't performing and put them aside and focus on the ones that are. And the same thing that trickles down then to your advertising dollars. If you're and I see this happen with clients a lot, they're spending money on advertising products that they're out of stock on. That's just throwing money away. So and they're not coordinating the link of how quickly things are selling with how much they're promoting it. And if you can just put those two things together, you can start to slow down promotion on things and let that stock carry forward a little bit longer. None of us like to slow down sales, but being out of stock is not good, and being out of cash is even worse. So those are some things to think about profitability, is just really getting clear on which products are performing profitably for you.
And so, to avoid that, you really want to, before you say, I'm going to expand, Charles is 100% right. Expanding into different products is a key component for scaling. But if you try to do that too fast and without really doing the calculation of, this is how much I'm going to need to get that additional inventory, this is how much I'm going to need to market that, this is the cash flow runway that I'm going to need to be able to, do I have enough cash to be able to support 4, 5, 6 products when I'm already struggling with one? Sometimes the growth actually hurts us instead of helps us. And if you want, the key to component to scale is really about processes and being able to have your team be able to work without you. There's a little software that I use called Notion.so. It's just a simple, kind of like a little wiki thing. And we used to keep our processes in Word documents and Google Docs, but man, oh man, was that a nightmare. And so this is that's been really helpful for us. But you want to make sure you have those processes written out. So one of the things with processes, there's a YouTube video out there where dad teaches kids how to make peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. Go watch that first before you go write any processes, because there's a lot of assumptions that we make, and know that the first draft of those processes is always going to be wrong. So you're going to put a draft together, you're going to have your team do it, they're going to come back with questions, and you're going to have to say oh, I needed to say to go to Seller Central to get that information, or I needed to say click the login button. There's a lot of things that we assume that, because we've been doing this, that as you're going to do that, I like to do video instructions, and then have my team write out the kind of like the text instructions and add screenshots. And then we have somebody who's not familiar with that process in a different department, see if they can go through and complete the function without assistance. So you make sure your business can function without you. That means starting with a list of what are the things that I have to do? What are the things that couldn't wait, for me to come back? And Cindy's pretty amazing. She's actually, if you haven't read Mike McCallowitz's Clockwork, Cindy's actually featured as the grade A student, the A+ student, where she's actually been able to create these processes in a way where her business is able to function. So, you should check out Cindy. Do you want to say anything about, because I know that you've done a really good job in marketing, really looking at kind of the process of the way that you flow things, and how that impacts kind of the process and using that to develop processes?
Yeah, it's once you get in the mindset of letting the business run without you, one of the things that we do, my husband and I are partners in the business, and we both go away together for 4 to 5 weeks every year. And the business, and I don't mean go away with our laptops. I mean, we go away, we disconnect. Our team is not in touch with us unless a staff member passes away. That's our rule. And so to do that, what really happens when you set that up is other people have to be responsible for the processes. It's not, you certainly start out with, yes, you design it, but ultimately you want to hand it off, and then not only hand it off with, come back here and let me help you make decisions, hand it off with the authority to make decisions and with the authority to keep the process docs up in the future when something changes, because we all know every time we log into Seller Central, the screen looks a little different than it did the day before. And so to keep those process docs up, you don't want to be the one responsible for that. You want the person who's closest to it and involved with it doing the work to keep those processes up. So it's one thing to hand off the work, but keep having to make decisions. And that's where delegation fails. That's where people fail, because you get asked so many questions that you just end up saying, I may as well have done this myself. And so then you take it back on, and then you're back where you were, and you go through this loop. So you want to be in a situation where you truly delegate and you give it to someone else to take things on their own. And then when they own it, then you're able to step back and work on higher level things, and the business can work without you.
For us, that really means setting out really clear KRAs and KPIs, so key responsibility areas. So basically, where does the buck stop for each process? If something doesn't happen, who's responsible for that? And not like faults, not like blame, not like making somebody wrong, but like who is the person that is at the source of making sure these things get done, and what are the KPIs? How will I know? And that's how you kind of avoid like the Michael Gerber, like the managing by abdication, where you just hope it goes away. Having those KPIs delivered to you, those key performance index areas, you really have that so that you can monitor that things are still getting done to the level that you need to have them. This is especially true around sourcing, around advertising, around cash flow management, labor hours, things like, if you have warehouse staff, doing things like timing, how many, doing audits of how long things take to make sure you're really understanding your labor costs. So, that's it. Yeah.
This really becomes important too when you start considering an exit from your business. Your business is more valuable if someone's buying something that can run without you. And so this is not only good for you from the standpoint of being a business owner to be able to step away and have where you run the business and it's not running you, and you really have things under control, in control. But it's when you position your business to sell, you can command a higher multiple because you have things set up that it can run without you. So it makes your business more valuable. It's not that it makes it nicer for you to work on, which it does. But again, that's going to pay off for you in the end too.
So it's security, it's flexibility, and ultimately it's your access to having a higher multiplier. Another big piece of, and part of the processes will be part of your intellectual property. So doing things like making sure your patents are filed, your trademarks are protected, that you filed those are all going to be important pieces. Each one of these pieces of intellectual property, whether it's, a process, whether it's, actual a scent or a logo, all of these things, they add to that, the part of the package that you're really selling. So it is important, if you've been putting those things off, know that things like trademark and patents take a very long time. So you need to think about kind of where's your horizon and where do you need that flexibility to be able to sell. And if you talk to people then that are in the business of selling businesses, they can tell you how much that patent would ultimately mean for your multiplier as well. And then there are lots of different kinds of broker relationships. So sometimes people have maybe they've only heard of Empire Flippers, or maybe they've only heard of this other product. There are lots of different types of brokers. And so you want to make sure you're clear on the taxes, the fees that are involved in the brokers. And then if you talk, a lot of them, if you talk to them and do a consultant, they'll say, these are the things that you need to do in order to get your business ready before we even really want to list it. And then you make sure that you've actually asked for referrals, and do call the referrals and ask how the process went. Same thing for when you have employees, actually call those referrals. You'll be surprised who people will put down as a referral sometimes if they think that product isn't good. So make sure you really do your due diligence, not only on the broker, but all the pieces, the people that are going to be involved in this process. What experience do they have? Where have they been, what experience do they have in your industry? Those kinds of things. I think Cindy has a lot more that she can add on this than I do, probably, but...
We've helped, I think, a few dozen sellers go through this process, and it's interesting how people come to the decision of how they want to position their business. Some of them, I like to use the real estate analogy, because some people just want to do it themselves. They want to just put the business out there, find a buyer. There's a software tool out there now that really helps to do that, if that's the way you might be interested to go. It's called Fba Private Market, and that's a software tool that matches buyers and sellers, much like Zillow does in the real estate market now. But then there are brokers, people that work like a real estate broker who know the people that might be buying, and they also know the businesses that are wanting to sell, and they can help you position your business so that it is, and take some of the load off of that negotiation and conversation, because they've been down this path before. There's several of those. Robyn mentioned Empire Flippers, Quiet Light Mortgage. There's a brokerage. There's a number of those people out there that can do a little bit more hand holding, and also can help you as a consultant to be ready to sell. And then finally, for some of the larger brands that might be, or businesses that might be wanting to sell, there's private equity. These are like M&A, mergers and acquisition investment banks. We've had a number of clients go through these type of relationships where they really have access to strategic buyers, and when your business, they take your business on, they know how to position your business to those buyers, and they do an excellent job as well. If you're interested in learning more about this, there's a really great podcast out there called Amazing Exits, and Paul Miller is one of the hosts of that, and he just does a really good job of talking through a lot of the options and talking to a lot of sellers who's been through the process of doing an exit. So that would be a good resource if you're wanting to get educated on exiting.
And this again talks to why it's so important that you build the processes and that you really focus on making sure your business can run without you before you start working even on the exit, because you're going to need to do a lot of research, start to learn a lot of things. So your business, you need to be able to kind of pull your gas off the business and have it still be working and functioning and growing as you do your due diligence that it's going to take for you to be able to really successfully do the exit. There's a lot of aggregators out there. There's a lot of opportunity to sell your business right now. So, there's a lot of really great companies like SellerX that are out there. So you want to make sure that you actually know what they're going to be expecting. Sometimes small changes in the way that you operate your business can make a big difference in your overall multiplier. So that's kind of what we had for this. I don't know if Charles and Cindy want to talk a little bit about, I think one of the questions that I see a lot is, like what kind of multiplier do you think I could get from my business? I think that's the question that when people ask me about exits, that's the question I have, that I'm like, well, this is kind of what I've heard. I would love to hear what you guys say, not to take over Dan, but
What I've seen is between 3 and 6 most recently, and it certainly has been a hotter market in the recent times. But that's what I'm seeing, and a lot of that really does depend on the profitability and on the business and how well it was packaged and running to be able to hand it off. Charles, what's your experience?
So it's the same as what you say, Cindy, and I think over the last 18 months, the multiples have increased, of course, because you have more and more aggregators that come into play, and the market is getting very hot. And I really liked your presentation and the way you present it. So it's all about profits. And that's why, and it's the same for us, after acquisition, our North Star is really profitability. And that's the way we take decision on where to expand and how to expand. And our goal is really to grow the brands after we acquire them.
Yeah. And so businesses, am I correct when I say that, like, when a business has like more tribal knowledge, like when people do like retail arbitrage, where it's really more about somebody going and doing the work versus like a private label, that the multipliers are like night and day difference on those, right?
To be honest, I haven't had many retail arbitrage clients sell. So I don't know if that means that there's not the market for them, or if that means that those particular clients just aren't ready to sell. But I don't have knowledge about that myself.
Yeah, we focus on acquiring private label brands that we can develop. So we don't focus so far on retail arbitrage.
Very interesting, and the same as you mentioned, Cindy. I've not come across many in that sort of position either. So maybe it's just few and far between.
Yeah,
really, it's very, very interesting. I know I've got 1,001 questions, but I'm going to pass it out to our audience here. I'll open this to absolutely everybody. So hands up, whoever wants to go first. We've got a question here from I apologize if I butcher your name, from Milagros. is it worth to sell handmade products with a small stock from 25 to 5 on Amazon, or is it better to use a smaller platform like Etsy?
We have some clients that are killing it on Handmade. And, you start on Handmade and then use advertising. You'll have to draw people outside of the search. So you're never going to rank for, if you've got a handmade product and then there's like standard stock products, you're not going to rank organically for that. So you're going to have to use advertising to kind of pull. It can be 100% possible, and the tools for advertising for Amazon's platform are much better than Etsy's. Etsy's are still pretty rough. I think there's a lot more the people, depending on the product, you're going to have more targeted customers on Etsy. I think it's good to do both, but you do need to make sure you have the bandwidth to be able to really focus on. Amazon Handmade is not 1, 2, 3, and especially if you have like things like customized products, it's a lot more complicated. But it can be done, and I do see people making good money, more than they're making on Etsy sometimes, many times. So it is possible. And think about what things could you do kind of more at a stock level where you could carry them more in a traditional FBA offer. Sometimes I work with handmade custom clients, and that is kind of what they've missed is, this could be standardized and it could be sent. And even though it's still handmade, I could make it available with an FBA offer.
Charles, what about yourself? What have you seen? Have you taken over many handmade products?
No, so far no, because as we want to scale, we when we acquire a business, we always think about, okay, is it possible to increase the quantity, and how is the production done? Where's the suppliers? What's the supplier relationship? We have done a few acquisitions of where products are sold also on Etsy, but they were not handmade.
Cindy, do you have many people that you're working with at the moment as well? I'm going to say
not too many on Etsy, really, and not too many handmade, to be honest. I can't think of any.
Yeah, it's the same for myself. But I've seen, and to be quite honest, I've bought quite a lot from handmade. I did look into it, but I lacked the skill set and the patience to do it. So it's always quite interesting. I appreciate that we're actually running quite a bit over now. One last question, and this is more for my benefit actually than anybody else's. So if you've not had your question read out today, please fire them on to the Sell Zone team. They will pass them on to us, and we will do our absolute best to help you. Cindy, as someone that sold their business, I was just a one-man band. I didn't have to deal with anything else. One thing for me as part of letting go was that was the difficult part, was to actually let go. What sort of excuses have you had in terms of not people selling the business, but people wanting to scale the business, where they've said, actually, I don't want to let go. I want to be involved. What's the sort of best excuses you've heard from people saying, hands on?
Well, the time is not right is the typical one. The time is not right. And to be quite honest, I've had a few people in that situation, and they were very smart not to sell when the market started heating up, and clients were getting bombarded with offers, and they would call, should I do this? Should I do this? And I'm like, okay, if this is your first offer, if you're not really haven't been through the mental process of positioning your business for sale, then just take a breath and let's get organized. And you don't have to take the first offer. I don't think the market's going to get cold tomorrow. But as things have heated up and people have gone back into the market, the money is really appealing. And, I in preparation for this, I just looked through the list of how many clients we've had sell, and, it's a couple dozen, and it's like, wow, and I do know some of those have been through, did position their business a couple of years ago, and they pull back and they thought, I think I want to let it grow. I don't think the time is right. And at that time, they weren't getting really good offers. Now the offers are really good. So knowing the value of your business really helps you make that decision when the time comes, I think.
Cindy, I really wish I'd have had you there through the whole process, because it was a nightmare from start to finish. Just anyone that else is considering selling the business, start early, prepare, and make sure you've got experts on this thing because, as you know, as Cindy pointed out, I thought I could do it on my own because I'm a one-man band. I had my stock, I had my P&Ls, I had my expenditure, I had all the accounts out, and it still was a nightmare to get through. So no matter how small, how big you are, I'd 100% recommend. I can't. You know what? I actually don't know anyone other than Cindy as well, so I can wholeheartedly say I don't know anyone better than at this. Robyn, you'll back me up on this, right?
Yeah, well, and I think that there's a lot of mental things that you need to start thinking about. We even just did a rebrand. So I went from working mostly with helping sellers and doing coaching consulting to the agency. And I thought it would be really easy, but I found it really emotionally difficult to let go of this brand that I had spent so much time nurturing and developing. It was kind of like taking a kid and throwing him off a bridge. It was very... it was much more difficult and much more psychologically strainful or strenuous than I anticipated being. So if you know that you're looking at selling, you need to start mentally looking at separating your identity from your business's identity. And even if you're not, I noticed especially when the first couple of years, how I felt about myself, whether I felt I was a failure or success, was determined about how much money was in the business account at any point in time. So right after disbursement, I felt awesome. And then right before disbursement, I felt like a loser. And so if you can separate that, your mental clarity will be better. But it also will help as you try to sell to be able to remain objective and not get so emotional, because it is, if you need to stop thinking about your business as a child and start thinking about as this is an entity and it's a tool to give me the life that I want.
Well, and it's interesting too, when you start to think about selling, and you need to think about what you're wanting long term. I can't tell you how many of our clients that have said, okay, I guess we stop our bookkeeping, but we're going to be back. And I'm like, you made enough money, you don't have to come back, but they want to, because this entrepreneurship is in their blood. And so I think your stage in life and figuring out what you want your long-term plan to be, there's a lot that goes into it besides just the money piece of it, but knowing what that money piece is and what it might afford you for your next phase in life and what you're interested in, those things, having that knowledge of what your real opportunity is really does position you to think about it more clearly, quite honestly.
And I think that when you sell, we work very closely with the previous owner, and we develop together the strategy to expand the brand. So, if you think, okay, I'm ready to sell, I don't want to go the extra miles and to launch my US brand to all the rest of the world countries and all the marketplaces, but I would love to see my brands in the hands of millions of customers, we are happy to help. And that's why we are here. And that's why we put so many professionals together to make sure that we can expand and create awesome brands and develop them and give them to the world.
So you can see your child floating down the river, not after you throw them over the bridge. Right?
Growing up.
I always say every one of these webinars, Robyn comes up with something that just completely blows my mind. And as soon as I mentioned it being as a child, I thought, oh, here we go. I am sorry to cut the fun short, everybody, because we are well over time. I've been a terrible moderator and thought more about my own well-being than everyone else that's got a life on this panel. So I'm just going to go through and ask our panelists if they can tell you best ways to get in contact with them, a little bit of a wrap-up, and then we will all say good evening. So, Charles, would you like to sign off first?
Yeah, so it was great to be here. Thanks a lot for your attention. If you want to contact me, go on LinkedIn. The link is in the comment or on the website of SellerX. Be assured that if you sell your brand to SellerX, we'll work closely together and we'll grow the brand.
Perfect. Robyn, yourself?
So if you can reach me on my website, marketplaceblueprint.com. I'm on Twitter, AMZ Robyn Johnson. But if you in LinkedIn or Google, if you search Robyn Johnson Amazon, I come up. So I'm always happy to answer questions. And if you're looking to kind of grow, you market your products on Amazon or expand onto Amazon, I'm always happy to talk to people. Any friend of SellZone's a friend of mine. So I want to thank them for the chance to share today. Thanks.
Perfect. Thank you very much. And last but very not least, my new best friend for when I do set up and then sell my next business, Cindy.
You can reach out to me at bookskeep.com. I'm on all the social channels, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and Cindy Thomason and Bookskeep. So you can find me in any of those places. And I too want to thank you for having me today and for the attention, and would love the chance to help a client get profitable so they can have a good exit down the road.
And I can't express how lovely it's been to meet you both. And if we'd only just met a year earlier, my life would be significantly different. I wouldn't have had more hair, but I'd have less grey. And as everyone's mentioned, I'm trying to decide which side the chat box is on for you all. My LinkedIn profile is just there. I'm at Dan Saunders 86. Just as a final reminder as well, because you've signed up to this webinar, SellZone has offered you a free 90-day trial of their tool. Everything that Charles mentioned and Cindy and Robyn have mentioned in terms of ranking factors, you can pretty much measure through this tool, and best of all, it's free. The majority of it's free, and you do get the rest of it free for at least 90 days as well. So that's the last time I'll plug this. From me, again, good evening, good afternoon. Thank you very much for being with us today, and we will see you next time. Thank you very much.